Hey, New Life family, I'm Stephanie, and it's time for another TRAC devotion. Well, we've been digging into the book of Numbers for a while, and I probably will focus on chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16, because as I was reading these chapters, one thing just came to my mind over and over and over again, and that was the condition of the hearts of the people and how important it is to have a heart that's after God, how important it is to have your eyes and mind and heart just focused on the Lord and the Lord only, because we know hard times come, especially in the wilderness with the Israelites. They had a lot of struggles, but God always showed himself faithful. They needed food. They had manna and quail. They needed water. They had water coming out from rocks, which is an amazing miracle. They needed shelters and they had shelter. God drew himself closer to the Israelites as his chosen people in a wilderness by establishing the tabernacle. And he always made a way to be close, such a holy God, to be close to an unholy people. And we just see this desire of God to be with the Israelites. And we see the pillar of a cloud by day and fire by night. God was showing himself to the people all over the place. They even got to see God's glory on the face of Moses as he came down from Mount Sinai. So they seen miracles. Their needs were met constantly, but yet their desires was for other things, and they allowed emotions to take over into such an extreme. So we see in chapter 13 that the spies are sent out, the 12 spies are sent out to go spy on the land of Canaan, the land that God has promised them, the land that flows with milk and honey. This was God's promise. This wasn't Moses' promise or Aaron's promise. This was God's promise. And God has showed himself faithful so many times to the Israelites. But yet when those spies came back, what happened? The majority of them were like, we can't do this. The people are too strong, too big. But yet in chapter 13, Caleb stands up. And what does Caleb say? He says in verse 30, he says, we can certainly do this. He has so much confidence. He knows that with God, nothing is impossible. And he's like, with certainty, we can do this. And then later in chapter 14, we have Joshua standing up as well. And in verse 6, Joshua says, yes, the Lord will lead us into the land. Caleb and Joshua weren't denying that there's giants in the land. They weren't denying that their enemy is strong. They just knew God was bigger because their heart condition was right. The heart was fixed on God. And no fear or no doubt or no strong enemy would deter that or make that crumble, because their hearts were just fixed so strongly on God. And we know what happens. God tells the Israelites, except for Caleb and Joshua, that they won't see the promised land, that they'll wander around for 40 years until every one of them is dead and their children will take the land. And that is so sad. That is so devastating. The hearts just must have been compromised. The hearts just must have been swayed. The hearts must have been on other people or other things or on their emotion. The fear was too strong or the doubt was too big. And what a shame, because we see what God can do. When our heart condition is right and focused on God, we can have this faith that rises up even in the midst of a strong enemy, no matter what that is, and we can have victory. We know that God is with us. He is for us, and that he will fight for us, and he will meet every need. But yet the Israelites lost sight of that because of their heart condition. And we see that in chapter 16 as well, with Korah and his tribe. We see that they want to rebel against Moses and Aaron. They want more power. They want the leadership. They want the priesthood. Why not us? Why them? So they come against Moses and Aaron, and I just love Moses' response. Moses' response, let's see if I have it here, is in verse 22. It says Moses and Aaron, they fell, or Moses fell face down. it was verse 4, 16:4. Moses fell face down. He went to the Lord first. Why? Because his heart condition was right. God was on the throne of Moses' heart, and instead of retaliating, instead of getting angry or pushing back with these four men, Moses went to God, and Moses knew exactly what to do. And you can read the whole chapter. I don't have time to go through it all, but we do know that later on in the chapter, Moses is telling Korah and the people that they're going to know who's in charge. They're going to know what is true. And then Moses says in chapter 28, let me just read this. Moses says, "This is how you would know that the Lord has sent me to do all the things, and that this stuff was not my idea." He says that these men will die a natural death, then you know that I am wrong. But if God, let's see how Moses writes this. He says, "But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, they will go down alive into the realm of the dead. Then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." They thought they were coming against Moses and Aaron, but Moses is saying, no, you're actually coming against the Lord. The Lord established Moses as the leader. The Lord established Aaron as the high priest. So, Moses was saying, you better watch out. And we know what happened. It's like immediately after Moses was done with his words, in verse 31, it says, the ground under them split apart. And of course, they were swallowed up in that sinkhole. And Moses' heart was right before the Lord, and he knew exactly what to do, exactly what to say. And he didn't have to go and sin, retaliating against these men. When our heart is set right, God will lead the way. God will give us wisdom. God will give us discernment. He will give us the words to speak, even though they don't make sense. I'm sure they didn't make sense to Moses when he said, the earth was split apart. But he trusted God and knew exactly what to do. And then we see the people again, the heart condition. You think that after seeing this and seeing what God did, not only did the earth swallow up, and then in verse 36, it says the fire came down and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. So we have the earth open up and fire coming down. No human man can do that. But yet the people went to Moses and grumbled and complained, blamed Moses for what happened. And why? Because their hearts were not right unto the Lord. I don't know what made them so fearful. I don't know what made them so doubtful. I don't know what made them so rebellious or so agitated, because their needs were met. But that's what happens when your heart follows something else. That's what happens when God doesn't have priority in your hearts. And like the great commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's what happens when we don't do that. So we really have to be careful what our heart condition is and start examining ourselves. And I know this is a lot, but then because of this rebellion, God sends a plague. And again, Aaron and Moses go into intercession mode. And so Moses tells Aaron to offer incense for their atonement. And listen to this. I thought this was so cool. In verse 47, it says, Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for the people. He stood between, this is Aaron, he stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. Now, Aaron was a priest. Remember all those rules in Leviticus? He wasn't supposed to be near dead bodies, but yet he went. He went to atone the people among the living and the dead. His heart condition was after the Lord. And of course, that is such a grand picture of who Jesus was. He walked among the living and the dead. He became our sacrifice. He laid his life down and was dead for us. to shed his blood for the atonement of our sins. The plague ended when Aaron did that. And what happened when Jesus died on the cross? It was finished. The contract was done. He paid the price of our sin, and we are redeemed. What a great type of Christ this is in chapter 16 of what Aaron did. But the point is, have your hearts right. Have your hearts following after God. Make sure you're loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Don't let any emotion come first in your heart. Let it be God first. Don't let any doubt become first. Let God be first. Don't let anything in this world take the place of God being first in your life. Our hearts need to be focused and having God as the center of our hearts. He's on the throne of our hearts. And that's when we will know what to do. We'll have the wisdom, we'll have the words, we'll have the strength, we'll have the courage, we'll have anything that we need because our hearts are right after God, just like Aaron and Moses did. I hope you're encouraged, New Life Church. I know I am. And it's a word that I really needed for my own life. Have the hope. God is with you. He will never abandon you. Know that you're loved, New Life. We'll see you next time. Bye.